Hello. Um, Sambulani. Sambulani. I'm going to get it right. Perfect. Ooh. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My American colleagues are like, what? Yeah, I fully immerse myself now. How's everyone doing? Doing good? I see some smiling faces to the crew over there. I hope you're doing great. It's a little dark. No, maybe. Okay. So has the conference been treating you really well so far? Have you enjoyed yourselves? I thought lunch was really great. I think we all cued in really well. Then we got to poke fun at George. He lost his voice trying to promote the alliance, so that's great. And then PSC was all upstairs doing really well. So, and then Grad SN, it was a really great convening. So if you have a chance to, I would encourage a lot of us more seasoned scholars and practitioners, sit with those grad students. They've got some really great dissertations they're working on. And so let's encourage them to publish, and then we'll put pressure on Susan to let them publish in a journal and all the other journals that are happening. Sounds good? Good plan. All right, so this is our opening plenary. I am thrilled that we get to share this with you and have some guests with us from the local community, local country. But before I do that, I want to make sure that we recognize the sponsors of the conference. Let's see here. Perfect. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to say thank you to the Coastlands community, the conference planning folks, the hotel individuals who have been assisting us with this. Shout out to Mary, to Brenton, to the director, Rajan, to Benji, to my friend here on AV. They have just been very helpful. When I say we landed on Monday around 2 o'clock, they had coffee and everything ready for us at 3 to do a quick run of show. And so it was just phenomenal. And so when you have a chance and you see any of them, just let the Coastlands team know that we are very appreciative that they have fully embraced us and made this a very smooth process for us. So thank you to the Coastlands team. We also want to give a big shout out to GivePulse. They are a repeat sponsor of IRSlice and all things IRSlice. So thank you so much to George, to Tiffany, to all of you here. Thank you. It is no easy feat to always give us lanyards, so we thank you for that. And then also for your collaboration with Dissertation Dish and Lead California. That is just phenomenal that we can uplift our graduate students there. To Tulane University, which Aneshka is like, we don't have to do a shout out. We're going to shout out Tulane, because Tulane is our administrative home, but they're also a sponsor of this year's conference as well. So thank you very much to Tulane. And then again, of course, our welcome last night, Durban University of Technology. Thank you to Darren and to all those at DUT for coming and welcoming us last night, but also hosting us continually the rest of this week. So thank you to DUT. And then to the Iwatwinki, did I get close enough? Iwatwinki Municipality, which is the Mayor's Office of Durban. They are going to be our sponsors this evening for the reception at the Ushaka Marine World Aquarium. So thank you to the Mayor's Office for hosting us this evening. And then most importantly, to those who believe the dream before the dream came alive, was the KwaZulu-Natal Convention Bureau. So to Mdu and his team that hosted us last year for the exploratory trip, but also made a significant investment for us to have the conference here. So thank you to Mdu and the team at the KwaZulu-Natal Convention Bureau. And just so you know, I know you're getting coffee and tea in the African Heritage Room down the hall. There are exhibitors in the hallway in that room as well. So as you grab your snack and grab your coffee, and as you're mingling and sharing business cards, make sure to visit our 10 exhibitors that are there as well. They'll be here until Friday with us, and then we'll put up posters on Thursday as well. But make sure that you're exchanging information, because a lot of them are local universities that are uplifting community engagement here in this space with us as well. And so now I want to shift over to introducing Professor Darren Lorton. He is the immediate past chair of IRSlice. He served 2 terms on the board. He set on the board of the South African Higher Education Community Engagement Forum. I know they have a snazzy acronym, but I can't get to it. They say SFs? Yeah, see, this is why we have a conversation. I never feel like I'm up here alone. He's also been a champion for youth development through early STEM outreach and partnership. He's led and co-led national research projects on equity, access, and articulation of post-school education. Beyond his titles and accolades, Darren is a grassroots visionary who likes to call himself an introvert, so we're 2 of a kind in that, right? He's a teacher, he's an activist, he's a relentless advocate for educational justice. I have great words for you. Isn't it awesome? Welcome to the stage, Professor Darren Lorton.
Only in America do you introduce the person who's going to be introducing the person who's going to introduce the panel. So thank you for that. I feel esteemed. Oh gosh, that caught me off guard. So I'm supposed to share a few remarks on the significance of the conference in Durban. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to leave that for later, if there's time, because we have some very esteemed guests who can do a better job than I can about it's being hosted in South Africa. So I've also asked, how did I organize this panel of vice-chancellors? You've heard of straining gnats? No, it was easier. I'm going to be absolutely frank and honest. I know someone who knows the Vice-Chancellor of Rhodes University. I'm going to say this and probably incur his ire. He happens to be the Vice-Chancellor of Rhodes University. But he also happens to be, in my impressions, somebody who, as a Vice-Chancellor, is well versed in what is commonly referred to as the third pillar, third mission, third mandate. And there's an extent to which, in the work that he does and that Rhodes does, because of where he is right now, sorry, I don't want to make Rhodes this is the Vice-Chancellor. It possibly isn't the third. And so we asked him, knowing, or rather believing that you are a Vice-Chancellor who takes this mandate very seriously, from amongst your peers, could you give us a short list of people that you think also take this mandate seriously? Now, every person here was on that list, and a few others. And so, knowing that Vice-Chancellors are exceptionally busy, I sent the invite to all of them. And one by one, they declined, as they do when they're that busy. And as of now, one more is probably going to pop in later on because, as fate would have it, she is hosting a teaching and learning conference just next door. So if she pops in, that'll be good. If she doesn't, they're busy. So the fact that we have this team assembled in the first place is good, and the fact that you've given us your time is even better. We don't take it for granted, and we hope that we're going to be inspired by your thoughts. I also have to introduce Marisol Morales, and the script is just closed because I don't have access to you. So I'm going to do it from the heart. Marisol Morales, no, that's the hard part, is the executive director at the American Council of Education and is leading the Carnegie Elective Classification Community Engagement. Oops, gosh. Amongst other things. And I think the best way to introduce her is that she is absolutely vibrant and an extrovert, and I am, in spite of indications to the contrary, an introvert. And the fact that the two of us happen to enjoy its company has everything to do with community engagement. Marisol is going to be the moderator for the session, and I'm going to invite her to the podium to introduce our guests of honor.
Thank you, Darren. I'm actually going to do it from here, if that's okay, and we'll be in conversation. So first, good afternoon. I hope everyone enjoyed their lunch, and what a beautiful lunch it was. Sitting in community, having conversation with one another, and learning from each other. It's a privilege to join you here at Slice in my role as the Executive Director of the Carnegie Elective Classifications, a role that I took on starting in 2022. In this role, I have the opportunity to work with institutions in the United States, Canada, Australia, and other countries through growing collaborations, hopefully South Africa as well. While the context may differ, one truth remains constant. Community engagement is, at its best, embedded in the very DNA of institutions of higher education, or at least should be. Fully resourced, strategically aligned, and accountable to the communities that it serves. The classification hopes to do that and serve as a framework for doing that. South African universities have been leaders in the intellectual and practical frameworks of community engagement. Your engaged scholars have made considerable contributions to the field worldwide and within organizations. And yet, the plenary description notes the perception of CE, community engagement, as an unfunded mandate remains a challenge, one that resonates in many national contexts, not just here. We see the rolling back and closing of community engagement offices within institutions in Canada, in the US, and we're facing a possible tsunami with this at a time when we need these institutions, we need this work the most. So today's conversations with the Vice-Chancellors is about moving beyond that perception. We will explore how community engagement can be sustained as a core mission of the university and how its societal impact can be measured and communicated, and how we can collectively shape policy and resource environments that enable its growth. We will also look ahead at innovation and leadership development, and at South Africa's role in advancing the global movement for higher education's public purpose. I'll be posing a series of questions to our panelists, invite them to share both their institutional experiences and their broader perspectives on sustaining community engagement in the long term. My hope is that these insights will spark dialogue across the room and across continents about how we build a future where community engagement is not an add-on, but a defining feature of our universities. We'll also have an opportunity for Q&A, and there'll be a mic going around the room for folks to be able to ask questions. I'm going to introduce the panelists, and then I'm going to give them 5 minutes each to give their institutional and organizational context, and then we'll move into my questions, and then into the broader Q&A. Okay? Sounds good? Awesome. Thank you. So today we're joined by an exceptional panel of higher education leaders whose careers reflect deep commitments to transformation, equity, and community engagement. First, we have Professor Balfour, the Rector and Vice-Chancellor of the University of the Western Cape. He's a scholar who's worked on language policy, multilingualism, and inclusion that has shaped institutional practice in South Africa. Next, we have Professor Mazibela, Vice-Chancellor of Rhodes University, who's a mathematician. Did I say it right? No. No, it's not all right. How should I say it? Mabizela. All right, thank you. Who's the Vice-Chancellor of Rhodes University, is a mathematician and advocate for expanding educational opportunity with leadership roles that advance access and excellence across the continent. Next, we have Dr. Matutu, CEO of University of South Africa. He's also a mathematician and policy leader who has driven national strategies to make higher education and research more inclusive and impactful. And finally, Professor Mutwa? Okay. Vice-Chancellor of Nelson Mandela University, is a development scholar and a former provincial director general whose work champions gender justice, social inclusion, and active democratic participation. Together, their leadership spans scholarship, policy, and practice, embodying a vision of higher education as a catalyst for societal change. Help me welcome this esteemed panel to our IRSlice conference. So Professor Balfour, we'll start off with you. If you can provide about 5 minutes institutional context, and then we'll just move down the line. Wonderful.
Thanks very much, Dr. Morales. Thank you, Professor Lawton, and all of the leadership of the organization that invited us to this panel. I'm really grateful to be here. It's an opportunity, I think, to talk about something which lies very close to my heart in scholarly terms, as also to the institution which I lead. UWC, for those of you who might not be aware, was founded in the 1960s. It celebrated 65 years this year and has always been an institution which has been located in proximity to the widest kinds of diversity in South Africa in terms of communities. Lower income, unemployed, migrant, peri-urban, semi-industrial, industrial communities are the university's direct neighbors. So from the outset, the institution has had to define itself as a university committed necessarily by virtue of proximity to its communities, as committed to social justice, diversity, and inclusion. It was an institution that formed a key partner in the struggle for freedom in South Africa, and many of Nelson Mandela's first cabinet members either studied at or came through and taught at UWC. So it's a long and proud history in the country, but it's also a complicated history, touched on by the intersectionalities of race and gender segmentation in our country. And I think those complexities also compelled that the university consider community as integral to the institution, not apart from the institution, a part of the community, not apart from communities. And when people talk to us about community engagement at the university, we often reply in terms of its integration into faculty and teaching learning programs. So there are three key words I'd like you to bear in mind in relation to UWC. Community engagement as anchor for the institution, fundamental to its identity. Community engagement as moral compass for the institution, defining very much what kinds of programs have been designed over time in relation to those proximate communities that are on the doorstep of the university and which we must engage with as part of our moral mandate. And then community engagement as anchor. So mirror, compass, anchor come to mind. And anchor because the university has in the longest time defined its role as an anchor in communities. It considers its role as a stabilizing force, a force for the public good, a force for community education, and an integral part of what it means to be a member of UWC is to be in community. So professions, programs, accreditations are very much linked to this notion of anchor, mirror, and compass within the institution. We're about 26,000 students, and for our American and other visitors in the audience, originally this institution was defined as a colored-only institution in the race classification of the apartheid period. Very early on in its history, it countered that, it struggled against that, and moved very quickly into becoming a racially integrated institution in South Africa from that period of the 60s and onwards. So it'll be interesting, I think, if any of you had to ever visit UWC, you would find that the members of the CE office, the Community Engagement Office, is a tiny team. And people often ask, well, how do you do all of this with a small and dedicated team? And the answer is, well, that team is much, much larger than the people that work in the offices themselves. That team is integrated into every faculty's functioning, into every environment that the institution operates in terms of its operations and its planning. And because of that commitment, you will also find that historically UWC has included individuals who come from our most marginal and unseen communities. That has had financial consequences for the institution, taking in students who could not pay fees, who could not afford a university education, has for the last 2 decades, I think, put the university in a position where it is both the champion of marginal and unseen communities in and around the Western Cape, as also having to pay very careful attention to the stewardship of its resources, because you can imagine the complexities from a financial sustainability point of view if you're committed to that education provision of a high quality and taking into account where our students come from. So Dr. Morales, I hope I've kept within the time. I'm not sure who's keeping time within our audience, but that gives you something of an understanding of the institution and the mandate in terms of community engagement. We're a public good institution and a public force in our communities in terms of how we work with communities. In the last 3 years, if I could just elaborate very briefly, the university has also moved from being a campus-based institution to a community-based institution. So we locate health sciences in the greater Belleville area rather than only on the campus of the university. We have a presence in Fusantekral, in Khayelitsha, in Guguletu, and the like, which I think many of you will know are communities with very high levels of unemployment or very low employment rates. And that has also been a purposeful and intentional strategy in terms of making the university not only a campus presence, but also a presence in communities and around communities. Participating in the key areas of expertise that the university offers, let me also add areas of health, technology, energy, and those three together with our humanities programs are what I would characterize as being the hallmarks of an education at the University of the Western Cape. Thank you.
Professor Mutwa. Oh, make sure it's turned on.
Here, it's on now. Thank you very much for the opportunity for my university to participate in this very, very important and critical engagement. As it has been said, I'm the Vice-Chancellor of Nelson Mandela University, and we were asked to share examples, case studies of our engagement initiatives and how these are impacting our communities. I would like to start by stating an obvious point, that how we advance our engagement function as universities starts with the fundamental question of how we envision the role of a public university in the 21st century and in a society like our own, which remains deeply unequal. There is a significant body of scholarship on this topic of conceptualizations of a university, and that continues to evolve. This in the face of commanding challenges that confront communities where we live, as my colleague has outlined, where we learn and where we work. It requires us to engage differently to better serve our mandate and to open ourselves up more as universities. So the idea of a university as a perpetual student of community is not simply a slogan, but it is rooted in our understanding that we can better discharge our mission if we turn our work outside to create reciprocal pathways between communities and the university. I'm going to touch on 4 points to illustrate what I've just said. I would just share briefly, very briefly, the engagement philosophy of Nelson Mandela University. And then B, I will also share how we've tried or are continuing to try to practicalize this engagement philosophy and approach. And thirdly, I'm going to share a case study of what we call the hubs of convergence, which is an initiative which we conceptualized to bring life to our ambition of what we call equalizing engagement. Finally, I'm going to just briefly share what we are learning as a university. For a few years now, as the university, we've been on a journey to reimagine our expansive role and purpose, situated as we are in that province and in the community that we are in the Eastern Cape, and also carrying the name of Nelson Mandela, which brings with it an ethos and values inherent in his imagination as a social figure of justice. After considerable reflection and research, consensus was reached by our university that our fundamental purpose as a university was going to be a socially embedded, transformative and responsive university in the service of society. You'll find this as a fundamental expression in our website and in our papers about the university, that we are a social embedded, transformative, and responsive university in the service of society. This conceptualization embraces a broader thinking that firstly advances better connectedness of both internal and external stakeholder engagement, and secondly recognizes the concept of social responsiveness as a strong and essential component of engagement. When considering our university's end goal of being in service of society and the expressed desire of a new and reflexive approach to institutional engagement, several propositions have emerged as to how we approach our work. Our reimagining of engagement is of an equalizing space. We do not see ourselves as central to the survival of the community, but we actually see ourselves as a member of the community creating convergent spaces where the university and its multiple communities come together to co-create approaches to societal challenges in a mutually affirming manner. It is animated, this approach is animated by a theory of change that positions convergence as a vehicle for societal transformation. We understand that universities do not have all the answers, and communities are far more resilient than we have assumed as universities. Key to our engagement philosophy then is the idea of equalizing relationships with communities where what we learn from them shapes our epistemology and brings in perspectives beyond the reach of our traditional approaches. The emphasis is on co-creation, on equity, and on social justice. We conceptualize community engagement as convergence. That is important and fundamental. An institutional stakeholder community engagement framework that we adopted in 2024, it shifts our approach to engagement decisively from transactional and from authoritative, but to transformative engagement. Then I will just share how we have practicalized this, and just using one example in the interest of time. In order to ensure that we bring practical expression to our engagement philosophy, we embarked on a number of practical interventions. These included, firstly, elevating the engagement function to a strategic level by establishing a separate portfolio called Engagement and Transformation, headed by a Deputy Vice-Chancellor alongside other Deputy Vice-Chancellors of Learning and Teaching, Research and Innovation. This meant investing resources in the Engagement and Transformation portfolio and assembling a team that shared the vision of reimagining engagement as convergence. Also, we decided to recenter engagement in a way that we made sure that we underpin our work with a theoretical framework that provides the basis for thinking about engagement as a cohering hub at the center of the university rather than dispersed activities which are on the periphery. Securing institution-wide understanding and appreciation that the engagement philosophy and practices that were being advanced are informed by our preceding engagement work, but also informed and animated by our reading, continuous reading of how the university could better engage with its generative mandate. In this regard, the university over the years has engaged deeply with itself and with our various publics as students, so that we foster a posture of deeper humility in how we approach our work. Now, I just want to share the examples of what is in the umbrella of the hubs of convergence as one experiment of engagement which we have practicalized. You will also see this work on our website. One of the keystone programs that emerged from this theoretical framework is our concept of hubs of convergence. Hubs are not projects, they are not outreach programs, they are spaces and places where the university meets its counterpart, its partner, and community on equal and equalizing terms. Currently, we've got 8 hubs. There's one on individual and collective wellness, where we deal with issues of substance abuse in particular. There is a hub on food sovereignty and community food systems. And then there is one on gender engagement, where we focus at the moment on ending period poverty, because no child should miss school because they are having periods. We also have a hub that drives community-led initiatives. These are initiatives that the community themselves bring to the university. And we learn from them, and we work with them, and we put them in our curriculum, and so on. And then we've got a hub on knowledge sharing and learning, so where we continuously record the lessons and improve. And then we have got a hub on education ecosystem for transformative schooling, where we support schools and TVET colleges. And then we have got a hub on the revitalization of indigenous knowledge systems, both in practice and in research. In fact, we are just about to publish a book now on indigenous knowledge systems. So let me add by saying that paradoxically, we learned a lot from COVID-19. It boosted our ability and our agility, and it built our confidence that this work can be done. From the outset, we established what we call the COVID Coordinating Committee. You can find it in our website, that report, which coordinated the university's practical responses across a range of interventions with government, business, and civil society. Many lessons were learned from this intense period, and they have been included in the experiments that I have just highlighted. Let me stop there, Chair, and then I could perhaps talk to other issues during question time. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Mabisela.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me start by congratulating this organization on your 25th anniversary. May you see many more returns of the 25 years. I must confess I was somewhat tempted to spend much of my time just analyzing the number 25.
Mathematician.
And it's significant. Let me also from the outset express our profound gratitude for this opportunity. And I do want to acknowledge with immense gratitude and profound appreciation the team that leads community engagement at Rhodes University, led by Dai Hornby. I can tell you they're an absolutely fantastic team. We have vibrant community engagement thanks to their dedication. So let me just pick up from what Professor Mutua started with, and I take this as a given, that it is generally accepted that in a contemporary society, universities cannot remain. Thank you. They cannot remain cloistered spaces which are exclusively preoccupied with educating students and the production of new knowledge. completely detached from and unconcerned with societal issues. As we all know, universities do not exist in a vacuum. They are situated within specific social, economic, cultural, political, and historical contexts, and are intrinsically linked to the communities in which they are located. Let me just give you a very quick picture of where Rhodes University is located. We are in a small town, a rural town, a poor town, with high levels of unemployment. The university is the biggest employer. The university contributes the biggest percentage in the GDP of the town. It's a city, it's a town, well, it's a city because it has cathedrals, but it is really a struggling town. And so it does not take a genius to realize the importance of the university in that town. So I am immensely proud that over the years, Rhodes University has made considerable progress in integrating and embedding community engagement in the overall mission and purpose of our university. The approach to community engagement at Rhodes University is framed around the understanding that, firstly, meaningful and productive community engagement is predicated on building collaborative, mutually beneficial, inclusive, equitable, participatory, and knowledge-driven partnerships based on mutual respect and reciprocity. These are all the terms which we all use in the context of community engagement. Secondly, universities can and must contribute meaningfully and positively and sustainably to the well-being of communities in which they reside. And by the way, communities are not objects of research, and they are not passive recipients of the benevolence or generosity of an all-knowing university community. They are not helpless, and they are not without agency. I think that for me is really important. So they must be meaningfully and respectfully engaged in the identification of societal problems and must be involved in the co-creation of solutions to those pressing community problems. Thirdly, sustainability of the community engagement university partnerships can be achieved through building trust and by recognizing and valuing contributions of the individual partners and enabling communities to engage actively in shaping the partnership and the co-creation of solutions. Fourthly, and this takes a bit of humility, universities are not the only source of knowledge. Communities have vast knowledge and wisdom which have been passed from generation to generation. And they have been sustained for generations by this knowledge and wisdom. So this less formalized or informal or marginalized knowledge and ways of knowing need to be systematically curated and integrated in the university's intellectual project. So in my mind, surrounding communities provide an exciting, rich, and complementary site for different forms of learning and opportunities for our students. Service learning and so on, volunteering, I'm not going to go through this, I'm just trying to cut on what I had prepared. But let me indicate that at Rhodes University, we emphasize that the core functions of teaching, research, and community engagement must be pursued in a mutually reinforcing manner. Research and community engagement can and must transform and enrich the pedagogy and the curriculum. Research and teaching can and must create innovative and solution-oriented engagement with communities. And teaching and community engagement should deepen and strengthen community-based participatory research. The success achieved at Rhodes University, the success achieved at Rhodes University in advancing its community engagement agenda is the product of a series of intentional, strategic decisions and sustained actions. And these measures have been directed towards embedding community engagement as an integral and defining feature of the university's institutional identity and culture. By consciously positioning community engagement at the heart of its academic research and operational activities, Rhodes University has ensured that this commitment is not a peripheral initiative, but rather a core element of its ethos, shaping how the university interacts with stakeholders, contributes to society in the fulfillment of its public good. Firstly, we took deliberate steps to ensure that our institutional vision and mission statement clearly articulated both our rootedness in local context and our active engagement with the global community. Duality of local and global. So, when we formulated our vision statement, we said that we aspire to be foremost in the generation and advancement of locally responsive and globally engaged knowledge that seeks to create a just and sustainable society. That's our vision statement. The duality of global and local is very important. So by embedding this balance in our vision, we affirm that our contributions to knowledge production, teaching, and societal impact are informed by local realities and enriched through global perspectives. Secondly, we established the Vice-Chancellors Distinguished Community Engagement Award. So we recognize our academics who are doing exceptional work in community engagement. And they are recognized at graduation ceremonies. They also give a lecture to the in public to show the extent to which we appreciate their work. Thirdly, our personal promotions framework has embedded in it the requirement that academics should carry out community engagement. Fourthly, we have introduced a postgraduate diploma in higher education community engagement. The idea here is that we need to theorize and put community engagement on a very strong theoretical footing. And fifthly, in 2023, we launched the African Journal of Higher Education Community Engagement, which is a peer-reviewed scholarly publication dedicated to advancing the theory and practice of community engagement across the African continent. Chair, let me stop there, but I really can't express how privileged I am to be the Vice-Chancellor of a university that has defined itself within its community and has made the contribution that it has. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce Professor Sibaya and then also invite her to speak, and then we'll finish with Dr. Matutu. Professor Sibaya is the Vice Chancellor and Principal of Mangosuthu University of Technology and is an award-winning nursing scholar whose research in maternal and child health addresses critical community needs. Welcome.
Thank you so much. For the kind introduction.
Oh, I don't think it's on.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Good afternoon, colleagues. Let me start by apologizing for coming a bit late. As the director has indicated, I come from MUT. MUT is the only university that is located in a township. I always see this as an advantage, but it also comes with its own challenges. Maybe if I could share within a short space of about 2 months, 2 of our drivers were shot fatally. This morning I woke up with the news that one of our staff members also was shot, but miraculously, through God's grace, he survived. So that's the reason why I'm a bit late, because I had to run around addressing to that matter. So my humble apology, Prof. I'm excited to be part of the panel. As I'd indicated, Mangosuthu is a university that is classified as a historically disadvantaged institution. As I'd indicated, it is located in the dusty streets of Umlazi. Fortunately, I was born, bred, and raised at Umlazi, so it is exciting for me to go back to my community and to serve the community that put me where I am. It's always said it takes the whole village to raise a child. At MUT, we have what we call an anchor strategy 2020 to 2025. This is the strategy that we are using to ensure that we serve the community. We serve the community where we are located, because universities have a responsibility. They exist to serve the community. So what we did at Mangosuthu, we developed what we call Inguyazana. Those that know isiZulu very well, Inguyazana is where a group of community members would come together and have some deliberations. I would call it in English a think tank. So we have this Inguyazana, we meet on quarterly basis, and Inguyazana comprises mainly the key stakeholders, ranging from the ward councillor, traditional healers, representatives from eThekwini municipality, and so forth. So we meet on quarterly basis to address the needs of the community that we serve, which is Umlazi. By the way, I always say in KZN, Umlazi is the only university that has a university. Umlazi is the only university. It's the only community that has a university. Now, as I indicated, this anchor strategy is a multi-sector collaborative approach aimed at revitalizing Umlazi Township socially, physically, and economically. So as MUT, we seek to play a leading role in convening stakeholders who share a vision of fostering community relationships. As I indicated, Inguyazana is one of the strategies that we use to ensure that we are indeed anchored in our community. Now, when looking at our current strategy, it has 5 strategic goals. Strategic goal number 3 talks to excellence in community engagement, which really show that we take our community seriously. Again, when looking at the nature, the demographics of the students that we serve, they come mainly from deep rural areas. The majority come from Umlazi, and that's the reason why almost 90% of our students are NSFAS funded. And it tells you the nature of the students that we have. So Umlazi serves Umlazi district and beyond. We place a special emphasis on community engagement and development within the core values of acting with accountability, integrity, respect, and excellence. Our mission statement, when looking at it, it also puts emphasis on community engagement. It talks to offering technological, career-directed educational programs, focusing on innovative, problem-solving research, and engage with government, business, industry, and community as end users. And that's the reason why we have this Inguyazana that comprises all key stakeholders that I've mentioned. And it reflects our commitment to collaborating with key stakeholders to advance the scholarship of engagement. I know that in most cases, I am a rated researcher. I know that in most cases, the universities, when we develop policies, including the policy for promotion, the focus is always on research. And that's the reason why community engagement is taking a backbench in our university, because we tend to focus mainly on research and maybe teaching and learning. But what about scholarship of engagement? So as MUT, just like other universities, I came when Professor Mabisela was talking. He did mention that at Rhodes, they also have awards for community engagement. We also have awards because we are encouraging our academics or our staff members to drive the scholarship of engagement. And when we have our community engagement day, it's planned for September. We invite all kids and they come in numbers. It's quite exciting because the plan is to showcase the projects that we are actively involved in driving the scholarship of engagement at MUT. We focus mainly on stakeholder engagement. So the quarterly community engagement forum session that we usually have encourage conversations internally about the community engagement project. So as I'd indicated, the focus is on serving mainly the community that we serve. And it's quite important that we advance the academic core of the university and not only research. We know that we often talk about three-pronged pillars of the university. That's teaching and learning, research, but then, unfortunately, community engagement, it usually doesn't receive the attention that it deserves. So I want to challenge each and every one of us who's here that we need to go back and review how much, because I always say the university exists to serve the community. Then why are we not doing enough to contribute towards the upliftment of the lives of the communities that we serve? Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Matutu will close this part of the panel with you speaking about universities of South Africa, and then we'll enter into the Q&A. Do you need a...
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good afternoon. To the Board of Directors of the International Association for Research on Service Learning and Community Engagement, to the Vice-Chancellors here present with us, the engaged scholars who are with us, the practitioners, the graduate students, community partners, the conference speakers and presenters, the conference participants, the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm quite thrilled to be part of the panel, and I can see that we are almost running out of time. I feel that in that case, let me quickly introduce our organization. We are Universities South Africa, which is a representative body of the 26 public universities in South Africa. That's all of our public universities. So the Vice-Chancellors who are seated here constitute the board of Universities South Africa, all the 26 Vice-Chancellors. So in terms of higher education, I would say is the highest level in terms of authority when it comes to universities and decision-making when it comes to universities. The way in which we are structured is that we would have communities of practice which are more your professional bodies where certain groupings decide on what to prioritize, where they want to learn together, and the direction that they would like to see University of South Africa leading the sector towards. Following that level are strategy groups, and these strategy groups are, each one is led by a vice-chancellor. So among these strategy groups is one for transformation. And that one for transformation identified community engagement to be one of the key areas that they should be focusing on. So looking at community engagement, it straddled that. We've got a research and innovation one, so it could not just fit because we have a teaching and learning one as well. So it ended up within the transformation strategy group. At a national level, there's a lot of demand and also a lot of concern about the visibility of universities among the communities and also nationally. So the key concern is the visibility of universities when, for instance, there are issues where there are experts which are just mushrooming everywhere on particular areas who are not in any way experts in those areas. So everybody asks, where are universities? And you find out that in such instances, you will rarely find them. You really have to mobilize to get university researchers in certain areas to come up and speak on behalf of the experts in certain areas. As Universities South Africa, we have focused on a number of projects or on a number of programs. The one that we had an interest in is the Carnegie Elective Classification for Community Engagement Program. We wanted to pilot it on South African universities. Dr. Morales, who is with us here, is part of that project, and it's a self-evaluation kind of a program where universities would assess where they are in relation to a number of criteria. All that they insist on is a single definition of community engagement, and then following that, universities can select in South Africa what they would like to be assessed on. What we loved about the program is the fact that it starts to set some kind of criteria, some kind of indicators which can perhaps be adopted at a countrywide level that would assist us. When we looked at the available resources, the institution which was interested in funding us in the US was affected with all these concerns that we have with the orders. So it has been very difficult for us to move forward in that particular respect. The second one, where we felt that we could contribute as Universities South Africa, is to look at the societal impact case studies within universities. Starting from last year, we got one of the experts when it comes to this issue of societal impact of universities, Professor Chris Brink. He's a former Vice-Chancellor at Newcastle University. He has been contributing to issues of impact assessment for some of the international countries that we have. And we used him last year to assist us to put the framework, the guidelines, the calls, what to look for. And the issue was not competition. The issue was putting on our website those case studies which can hold water, not so much competing among the institutions. So we ended up with case studies for 11 universities. And if you go to Universities South Africa website, and search societal impact case studies, you will find everything from the calls that we are making this year, guidelines that we have developed, the criteria which are being used to assess whether to add the case studies. And the issue is to come up with a database where we can demonstrate the impact of universities. And this is not about just research, it's teaching and learning, but there is a clear criteria which is saying that you must not talk about how it will contribute. You must talk about how it has contributed to society. So you will find out that each case study has to have that component. If you go to our website, you will be able to get that. Then the final one that we have come up with is mapping the work of our universities to sustainable development goals and trying to look at potential ways of getting universities to contribute on the basis of the work that they have done in alignment with that framework of SDGs. We started with that work. The first phase was completed where there was, okay, this university contributes this way, that way, the other. And now we moved on to the next phase where we will say, how does it contribute so that we can see which universities can be matched with which ones. So as it has been mentioned, not only are societies unequal in South Africa, also universities are unequal. So it is important that we map them in such a way that it's easy for them to find models that are common among them, which would enable the collaboration among the institutions. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a lot of questions and no more time. But I just want to maybe summarize some of the things and give so much appreciation for providing the South African context. I may squeeze in one question. First, we talked about imagination, we talked about anchor institutions, we talked about community engagement as this third pillar of institutions of higher education here in South Africa, and how they contribute to development and are influenced by their communities. Can you share a little bit from your perspectives, and briefly, how you feel like vice-chancellors and maybe even universities South Africa can collectively influence national and funding policy frameworks to help support community engagement? As you spoke about, even though community engagement is this third pillar, it's one that's paid the least attention to. So how do we bring it to the forefront here in South Africa? And how might that be a way for those of us across the globe to think about how we center community engagement as one of those important pillars of assessment of accountability for our institutions of higher education? And any one of you can pick up the mic and answer that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an absolutely critical question. Dr. Morales' colleagues in the audience might be aware that the unemployment rate in South Africa has just gone up. And what that suggests to me is that the funding model for higher education in relation to community engagement needs to be revised. I think our students should all have, if I could give very practical examples of this, should all have exposure to, awareness of, and training in the development of entrepreneurial skills. We talk about impact in communities, and we have to recognize we're not generating a cohort of job seekers. We need to be thinking about ourselves and our students as job creators, work creators, and the communities are the immediate beneficiaries of that in our spaces because of the high levels of unemployment. Not only, I have to say, about unemployment rates in terms of young people who are not studying and are not employed, but also our own graduates who are seeking employment. And we have also good data now about unemployment rates for graduate students. So this to me is an absolutely critical issue at this time, the revision of the funding model towards an understanding of impact in communities and impact with communities. Thanks.
On my side, I think we need to have a reasonable and fair resource allocation to drive community engagement. If universities can ring fence certain amount of money in their annual budgets just to drive community engagement initiatives, which could be service learning, which could be community-based research, then we will be able to drive community engagement at our universities.
I think that as universities, we need to signal first that engagement is not a third mission, by making sure that in the ways in which we deploy learning and teaching and research, community experts and community members, they actually become an active part of the deployment of our missions. And also that, as Chris Brink himself, that Dr. Matutu spoke about, as a global leader in the scholarship of engagement, he has said that we need to make sure that we position engagement as an opportunity in which we deploy the outputs of our learning and teaching and of our research for societal impact, so that it is integrated in the scholarly work that we do. So certainly, as Sizwe, Professor Babizela said, we actually have got a lot to learn in deepening our work by making sure that we open our universities up, we turn our scholarship outside, we make it porous so that community knowledges can come in and transform our epistemology. And I think that is the work that we have to do first before we worry about funding. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, my sister. She has said just about everything I was planning on saying. I think at a conceptual level and at a philosophical level, I am struggling, and I have been struggling for quite a while, about this notion of community engagement being a third pillar. And in my mind, when I look at pillars, I see things that are standing apart. And I'm struggling to conceptualize community engagement as a third pillar as such. I subscribe to the notion of community engagement as being embedded in the other two, teaching and learning, and taking an integrated approach. Community engagement, if you like, cross-cutting the teaching and learning and research. And so, understood in that sense, what becomes important is that in terms of budgeting, and by the way, there is no funding coming from government with a tag which says this is for teaching and learning, with a tag which says this is for research. It's funding that comes to universities, and universities budget on the basis of that. I think the first responsibility is to us as university leaders to make sure that when we budget, we provide adequate resources to advance the strategic imperatives of community engagement. But I really would like to encourage us to look at community engagement not as a third pillar, nor should we look at research and teaching and learning as separate pillars, but looking at all these as integrated, mutually reinforcing each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just wondering about the extent to which the function is part of your strategic documents as a university. Because if it is, and with clear objectives, with clear indicators of success, and with clear package of activities, then one has to ensure that it gets funded. As it has been mentioned, the budgeting happens within the university. From outside, which is from government, the funds which are earmarked will be funds for research through the National Research Foundation, perhaps funding less than 10% of our postgrad students and researchers. I think it's likely to be about 10% as well. And then the teaching and learning function, most of it will come from the University Capacity Development Program, from DHET, and then other funders. But there is no, usually that's soft funding, even for teaching and learning. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's use this one. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Please continue to engage with these leaders. Thank you for providing us the perspectives. We look forward to continuing to work with you, hopefully get the Carnegie Community Engagement Classification here in South Africa. So let's give a round of applause to our leaders. Before you all leave the stage, I want to invite Rochelle Smar up to give some closing remarks, and then we will transition to our next set of workshops.
All right, one more round of applause for these vice-chancellors. Thank you, thank you. I don't know why we thought we could do that in 90 minutes. I think we could have gone longer. It's all right, that just means you have to invite us back, right? So we'll be back in a few years. Just a few housekeeping tips. We are moving a little behind, and so just reminders, if you can, definitely grab refreshments in African Heritage. There's coffee and tea and some snacks there, but grab quickly and then come back because our sessions start up again at 3:15. And then reminder that if you're planning to go with us to Ushaka Marine World, the first bus leaves at 6. And I'm gonna just go ahead and put it out there. If you have a +1, please come talk to me so that we can make sure that we have enough room for our delegates before we invite our +1s as well. So first bus leaves at 6, dinner starts at 7. So if you want dinner with the sharks, be on that first bus. Have a good one. Bye.